I am Natalie Green, 32, a senior marketing director at TechVision. Today, I showed up by myself at my cousin Jessica's wedding at the Plaza Hotel. My navy blue dress had seemed flawless when I'd tried it on, but now it feels like a beacon highlighting my isolation. As I walked into the ballroom, conversations went quiet. She couldn't even secure a date, my sister Kimberly murmured to her spouse. Mom offered me that recognizable, sympathetic expression while Dad hardly looked up. My extended family's criticism felt crushing as I withdrew to a corner, battling back tears. Then, abruptly, the massive doors burst open and every head swiveled. Before I proceed with this tale, I'd enjoy knowing where you're viewing from. Share your location in the comments below and press that like and subscribe button if you've ever experienced family judgment. Believe me, you'll want to witness what occurs next when this surprising visitor transforms everything. Growing up in suburban Boston, I was consistently the dependable sister. My parents, Diana and Richard Green, established early that Kimberly was their treasured child. Everything seemed effortless for her. Dance performances where she invariably secured the starring role, perfect grades without apparent effort, and an innate social elegance that attracted people to her. "Why can't you be more like your sister?" became my childhood's constant refrain. When Kimberly was selected prom queen, my parents hosted an extravagant celebration. When I achieved honor roll, I received a brief "well done" at dinner. When Kimberly became engaged to Bradley Thompson, the son of my father's golfing companion, my mother wept joyful tears for days. When I secured my ideal position at TechVision, my achievement was referenced as a footnote at Sunday dinner. I studied diligently through college at Boston University, graduating with distinction in marketing. My profession became my priority, beginning as a junior marketing associate at TechVision. I advanced to senior marketing director over 8 years. My campaigns boosted client engagement by 30% last quarter alone. My work became my persona, my sanctuary. Then there was Alex. We were together for 3 years, and I believed he might be my soulmate, until I uncovered his 6-month betrayal with a coworker. "I didn't intend for it to occur," he claimed, as if that somehow lessened the painful deception. "We just clicked." The most devastating aspect wasn't even the infidelity. It was recognizing how naive I'd been, building a future with someone who'd already emotionally departed. The previous 8 months had focused on recovery and concentrating on work rather than romance. I immersed myself in projects, remained late at the office, and declined matchmaking attempts from caring friends. My recent advancement to senior marketing director coincided with cousin Jessica's engagement revelation. Jessica and I had been tight as children, summer holidays at our grandparents' lakeside cottage, constructing sand fortresses and capturing fireflies. As we matured, our journeys separated. She pursued fashion design while I entered marketing. We still share birthday messages and occasional coffee meetings, but our once intimate connection had weakened with time and geography. When her wedding invitation arrived with the feared +1 choice, my stomach lurched. I contemplated asking a friend to pretend as my companion, but ultimately chose against perpetuating a deception. I purchased my dress alone, selecting something refined but modest, a navy blue A-line with delicate beadwork that enhanced my auburn hair and green eyes without attracting excessive attention. The pre-wedding festivities were a particular form of agony. At the bridal shower, Aunt Victoria presented Jessica with intimate apparel, then gazed meaningfully at me. "Perhaps we should reserve some for Natalie for when she eventually requires it." The room burst into giggles while I manufactured a smile, my cheeks blazing. My friend Olivia suggested hiring an escort service, just for appearances, she mentioned over wine at our weekly meal. Nobody would realize. I would, I responded, and I'm finished pretending to be someone I'm not to satisfy my family. The wedding morning, I awoke early, taking special care with my appearance. I arranged my hair in gentle waves, applied understated makeup that accentuated my eyes, and slipped into my dress. Standing before the mirror, I rehearsed confident expressions and reminded myself of my value. "You're accomplished, intelligent, and whole on your own," I whispered to my reflection, attempting to believe it. The taxi ride to the Plaza Hotel was filled with nervousness. My hands played with my purse as Manhattan's skyline passed by the window. As the cab approached the hotel's magnificent entrance, I paused before exiting. For a moment, I considered instructing the driver to return me home, to invent some crisis. Instead, I paid the fare, took a deep breath, and walked toward the ornate doors alone. The Plaza Hotel ballroom was breathtaking despite my unease. Crystal chandeliers created a warm ambiance over cream and rose floral displays. Round tables surrounded a polished dance floor, each arranged with fine china and elaborate centerpieces. A string quartet performed softly in the corner as guests socialized. My arrival created a wave of whispered conversations. Uncle Gregory, already 3 drinks deep, judging by his reddened face, didn't attempt to lower his voice. Still unmarried at her age. Tragic, isn't it? All that schooling and nobody to share it with. Aunt Victoria swooped in immediately. "Natalie, sweetheart, alone once more. I know several suitable men I could introduce you to. There's my dental hygienist's son, divorced twice, but very reliable now. Or my neighbor's nephew. He's only 22, but they say age is merely a number." I mumbled non-committal appreciation, scanning the room for a welcoming face or discreet corner. Instead, I discovered Kimberly approaching, stunning in a designer pink gown that likely cost more than my monthly salary. Her blonde hair was styled in an intricate updo, diamonds sparkling at her ears and neck. Bradley lingered nearby, checking his phone with the bored look of a man who'd prefer to be playing golf. "Natalie," Kimberly air-kissed both my cheeks. "That dress is sensible. Clever choice for reusing at professional events." She glanced around, obviously. "Couldn't locate anyone willing to be your +1? I told Mom you'd likely arrive alone." Before I could reply, my mother materialized, elegant in slate blue with her silver-streaked hair flawlessly styled. "Natalie, dear, you look lovely." Her eyes held the same pity they displayed when I'd failed to make cheerleading in 9th grade. It's completely acceptable to be independent. Not everyone requires a partner to feel whole. Her tone implied the complete opposite. The wedding coordinator, a frazzled woman with a clipboard and Bluetooth headset, approached. "Miss Green, let me escort you to your table." She guided me across the room to what was obviously the singles table, a mixture of elderly widow Gertrude Jenkins, 16-year-old cousin Parker, who was attached to his gaming device, and recently divorced cousin Travis, who already reeked of alcohol. "Congratulations on your promotion," Gertrude shouted, her hearing aid squealing. "Your mother mentions you're very occupied with work. Is that why you haven't discovered a husband yet?" I reached for my water glass, nearly toppling the champagne flute in the process. "I appreciate my career," I managed, taking a long sip to avoid expanding. The ceremony itself was lovely. Jessica glided down the aisle in a custom gown, glowing as she joined Tyler at the altar. Their vows were intimate and touching, speaking of partnership and unwavering support. I felt genuinely pleased for her, even as a pang of sadness settled in my chest. During cocktail hour, I strategically placed myself near the hors d'oeuvres table, filling a small plate with stuffed mushrooms and spanakopita. The food provided me something to concentrate on besides my obvious lack of escort. When are you going to find someone, Natalie? My mother's cousin Linda trapped me by the shrimp station. Your biological clock isn't slowing down. Any possibilities on the horizon? Uncle Robert asked, serving himself a bacon-wrapped scallop. You know, my golf partner's son just divorced. He's somewhat older but established, owns 3 auto dealerships. By the 6th unsolicited recommendation for my romantic life, I escaped to the ladies' room, securing myself in a stall until my breathing calmed. At the marble sink, I blotted at forming tears with a tissue, careful not to smear my mascara. Pull yourself together, I whispered to my reflection. Their judgments don't determine you. I contacted Olivia from the relative privacy of a cushioned seat in the powder room area. They're behaving like I have a fatal condition called singleness, I griped. Remember, their responses reveal more about them than you, Olivia comforted me. You're pursuing dreams while they're obsessing over your personal decisions. Stay resilient, armed with artificial confidence. I returned to the reception. Kimberly intercepted me immediately, champagne glass in hand. You should really make more effort, Nat. Have you attempted those dating applications? Even people with difficult situations find partners these days. I forced a grin. I'm concentrating on my profession right now. That's what all unmarried women claim when they can't find someone, she replied with false compassion, patting my arm. The DJ's voice echoed over the speakers. All the single ladies, it's bouquet toss time. His gaze swept the crowd and seemed to pause on me. Don't be bashful, ladies. 3 aunts physically guided me toward the assembling group of unmarried women, mostly Jessica's younger cousins and college friends. Go ahead, Natalie. Maybe catching the bouquet will alter your fortune, Aunt Victoria urged, pushing me forward. I stumbled into position, feeling every gaze in the room on my back as Jessica prepared to throw her bouquet. A sudden silence descended over the crowd. Jessica hesitated mid-turn, bouquet gripped in her hands. The grand double doors at the ballroom's entrance swung open dramatically, and the string quartet wavered in their performance of Pachelbel's canon. A man stood in the doorway, tall and imposing in a perfectly fitted charcoal suit. His dark hair was styled in a way that appeared effortlessly refined, his jawline sharp enough to cut glass. He surveyed the room with assured ease, as if evaluating a boardroom rather than interrupting a wedding reception. Is that Sebastian Reed? Someone whispered audibly to my right. The tech billionaire? What's he doing here? Another voice questioned. Jessica and Tyler exchanged bewildered looks from the front of the room. They clearly hadn't anticipated a celebrity guest of this magnitude. Sebastian's eyes swept the room systematically until they met mine. A flicker of something, recognition, interest, crossed his features. With deliberate strides, he traversed the ballroom, the crowd dividing before him like the Red Sea. My heart pounded against my ribs as he drew near, his gaze never wavering from mine. He halted directly in front of me, his 6'2" frame looming over my 5'6" even in heels. Up close, his eyes were a captivating blue-gray, intelligent and somehow entertained. Before I could comprehend what was occurring, he grasped my hand in his touch warm and unexpectedly tender. Sorry I'm delayed, love. Traffic was horrendous. His voice was rich with a hint of roughness, loud enough for nearby guests to overhear. He leaned in and planted a gentle kiss on my cheek. His fragrance, a refined mixture of sandalwood and something distinctly his own. I stiffened. bewilderment and astonishment leaving me voiceless. Kimberly's jaw actually fell, her flawlessly applied lipstick forming a ridiculous O of amazement. From the corner of my eye, I noticed my mother straightening her stance, a radiant smile replacing her former look of sympathy. "Play along," Sebastian murmured in my ear, his breath warm against my skin. "You appeared like you needed saving. I'll clarify later." My thoughts raced through scenarios. Was this an error, a jest, some complex prank? Yet something in his unwavering gaze communicated genuineness, extending a lifeline when I was suffocating in family criticism. "I thought you might not arrive," I heard myself responding, surprising even myself with how composed my voice sounded. His smile was brilliant, white teeth against his lightly bronzed skin. "And miss this? Never." He wrapped an arm around my waist, the motion both protective and claiming. Jessica approached, her bridal radiance heightened by curiosity. "Natalie, you didn't mention you were bringing such a distinguished guest." Sebastian extended his hand to her. "Sebastian Reed. Congratulations on your gorgeous wedding. I apologize for the delayed arrival. Overseas business call ran overtime. Natalie assured me I was on the +1 list, but she wasn't certain I'd arrive in time." "Of course, any friend of Natalie's is welcome," Jessica gushed, signaling to the wedding coordinator. "We'll need to modify the seating arrangement." Within moments, I was moved from the singles table to the VIP section near the bridal party. Sebastian's hand remained at the small of my back as we walked, a warm pressure that felt strangely natural for someone who was essentially a stranger. The shift in my family's behavior was instant and striking. Kimberly materialized at our table, her expression a forced attempt at casualness. "Natalie, you didn't mention you were seeing anyone, let alone someone so accomplished." "You never inquired," I replied simply, feeling a wave of unusual confidence. "Sebastian, what exactly do you do?" Kimberly batted her eyelashes while Bradley scowled beside her. My mother appeared, practically pushing Kimberly aside. "Natalie has always been our intellectual one," she declared to Sebastian as if she'd spent years proudly announcing this fact, rather than lamenting my lack of social skills compared to Kimberly. "Top of her class at Boston University, you know." As we took our seats, Sebastian leaned close. "We should establish some fundamentals," he whispered. "How long have we been together?" 3 months. Where did we meet?" 3 months sounds credible," I whispered back. "Not too recent, not serious enough that I would have mentioned you to everyone." "Perfect. We met at the Wilson Charity Gala in March. I was impressed by your marketing expertise. First date was dinner at Le Bernardin." I blinked, surprised by the detail. "How do you know I work in marketing?" A slight smile curved his lips. "Your name tag is on the gift table. Natalie Green, Senior Marketing Director." I filled in the gaps. When the champagne toast began, Sebastian clinked his glass gently against mine, his eyes holding a conspiratorial sparkle that sent an unexpected tremor through my stomach. For a moment, I forgot this was all pretense, that this handsome, successful man wasn't actually my companion, that we were performing an elaborate act for an audience of wedding guests. Guilt gnawed at the edges of my consciousness. Was I any better than Alex with his deceptions? But this was different, I reasoned. This wasn't harming anyone, and it would be finished in a few hours. Nothing more than an entertaining story to share with Olivia tomorrow. Still, when Sebastian smiled at me, a genuine smile that creased the corners of his eyes, something stirred in my chest that had nothing to do with our invented relationship. Sebastian pulled out my chair with practiced grace when we returned from the buffet line, his manners flawless without seeming forced. As we settled into our meal, he leaned closer, his voice low and private. I overheard your sister when you arrived, he confessed, a flash of irritation crossing his features. The couldn't find a date comment, that was cruel. That's Kimberly, I said with a practiced shrug that didn't quite hide the old pain. She's been the family favorite since we shared a womb. She emerged first and has been leading ever since. Twins? His eyebrows rose in surprise. No, she's 2 years older, but never lets me forget those 24 months of extra wisdom. I took a sip of champagne. Enough about my family dynamics. I should know something about the man who's supposedly been dating me for 3 months, beyond the obvious tech billionaire headlines. He smiled, cutting into his prime rib. Self-made, if that matters. Started programming at 13, sold my first security software company at 25, launched Reed Innovations 3 years ago. The media exaggerates the billions, though. Only multiple millions. How disappointing, I teased, surprising myself with how relaxed I felt. I worked my way through Stanford on scholarships and ramen noodles. He continued, first-generation college student. Parents were educators in Oregon. That explains the lack of arrogance that usually accompanies wealth, I observed. I built Tech Vision's marketing department from scratch. Increased client engagement by 30% last quarter. Impressive, he said. And unlike when my family said it, he sounded genuine. What's your specialty? Digital, traditional, integrated campaigns with an emphasis on storytelling across platforms. Our last campaign for Horizon Software went viral with 60 million views. His eyes brightened. The one with the grandmother learning to code to create a memorial website for her deceased husband? That was yours? Brilliant emotional hook with practical application demonstration. For the next 20 minutes, we discussed marketing strategy. His insight keen and considerate. The conversation flowed to indie films we both loved. Obscure director Emilia Santiago's work, modern art. He collected emerging artists, but admitted to not understanding experimental installations and travel. You studied abroad in Barcelona? He asked, looking genuinely surprised. Spring semester 2015. Yes, at Universitat Pompeu Fabra. Why? I did a semester at AEC Business School that same spring. We probably passed each other on Las Ramblas without knowing it. Small world, I murmured, wondering at the coincidence. When the DJ announced the dance floor was open, Sebastian stood and extended his hand. Shall we make this look convincing? On the dance floor, his hand rested lightly on my waist, the other holding mine with confident pressure. He moved with natural rhythm, leading without dominating, adjusting perfectly to my steps. You're skilled at this, I said as he guided me through a turn. Mandatory ballroom lessons from age 12. Mother's orders. His smile turned rueful. She had aspirations of raising a gentleman. She succeeded, I said before I could stop myself. His eyes met mine, something warm flickering in their depths. The sensation of his hand on my waist felt increasingly right. Increasingly dangerous. Unbidden memories of Alex's betrayal surfaced. The shock of discovering text messages, the shattering of trust, the humiliation of having been so easily deceived. I couldn't afford to forget this was pretend, no matter how genuine it felt. Kimberly and Bradley approached as the song ended, Bradley's expression suggesting this wasn't his idea. Sebastian, Natalie mentioned you're in tech. Kimberly's smile was predatory. Bradley's father is looking to diversify his investment portfolio. Perhaps you could share some insights. Sebastian smoothly fielded their questions about market trends and potential growth sectors. his knowledge both extensive and specific. I watched in admiration as he handled Bradley's increasingly technical inquiries without hesitation. "How did you two meet again?" Kimberly asked, her tone suggesting she was searching for inconsistencies. "The Wilson Charity Gala," Sebastian replied without missing a beat. Natalie was representing Tech Vision. She made an insightful comment during the panel discussion that caught my attention. I approached her afterward, and we ended up talking until they closed down the venue. The fabricated story sounded so believable that for a moment I almost believed it myself. My mother joined our circle, her eyes shining with approval as she looked at Sebastian. "Natalie mentioned you might not make it tonight. Something about Tokyo?" I froze, having said no such thing, but Sebastian didn't falter. "Singapore, actually. Merger negotiations wrapped up just in time to make the last flight back." He placed a hand at the small of my back. Couldn't let Natalie down. My father, who had barely acknowledged me earlier, suddenly appeared interested in my existence. "Sebastian, Richard Green," he extended his hand. "Tell me about this security software you developed. My firm has been looking to upgrade our systems." As Sebastian engaged my father in conversation, I caught Kimberly watching us with narrowed eyes, clearly trying to reconcile the sister she'd always pitied with the woman who had attracted the attention of one of the country's most eligible bachelors. Later at the bar, Sebastian ordered sparkling water for himself and a glass of Pinot Noir for me, correctly guessing my preference. "This is absurd," I laughed softly, accepting the wine. "My family has done a complete 180. Suddenly, I'm the interesting daughter." "You've always been the interesting daughter," he replied. "They just failed to notice." Something in his tone made me look up sharply. "That's a kind thing to say to someone you just met." His gaze was steady. "You're quick thinking, articulate, and didn't hesitate to play along with a complete stranger. That suggests intelligence and adaptability, both interesting qualities." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. "Excuse me," he said, checking the screen. "I need to take this. Business emergency." I watched him step away, speaking intently into his phone. Kimberly materialized at my side immediately. "So, Sebastian Reed," she said, inspecting her manicure. "Bit convenient, isn't it? You show up alone, then suddenly you're with one of the most eligible bachelors in America. What are you implying, Kim?" "Just that is surprising you haven't mentioned him once in our family dinners. Mom had no clue you were seeing anyone, and he just happens to show up at the most theatrical moment possible." "We've been keeping things discreet," I said, my defensiveness rising. "Unlike you, I don't need to announce every detail of my relationship for approval." Her eyes widened slightly at my unusual sharpness. "Wow, sensitive subject." "No, I'm just exhausted of you constantly belittling me. For once, I'm content. Why can't you just be encouraging?" "I am encouraging," she protested. "I just find it strange that after Alex, don't—" I cut her off. "Don't bring him into this," Sebastian returned, sliding his arm around my waist with natural ease. "Everything okay here?" "Perfect," Kimberly said with a sugary smile. "Just catching up with my little sister." When she left, Sebastian led me back to the dance floor as a slow song began. This time, he held me closer, our conversation shifting to more intimate territory. "Family can be complex," he said as we swayed to the music. "My younger brother resents my success, thinks it was given to me, despite watching me work 80-hour weeks for years." "That sounds familiar," I admitted. "The hardest part is that I still crave their approval, even knowing I'll never fully receive it." "The curse of the responsible child," he agreed. always trying to earn love that should be freely given. During dessert, we shared a chocolate mousse cake, our forks occasionally meeting. His fingers brushed mine as he passed me a napkin, lingering longer than necessary. The simple contact sent warmth spreading through my chest. I found myself increasingly confused about where the pretense ended and reality began. Was that admiration in his eyes genuine or excellent acting? Was my own growing attraction real or simply a response to finally being seen? After years of invisibility in my family's eyes, Sebastian's phone buzzed again. He checked it, his expression growing concerned. "Maxwell, my business partner," he explained. "There's a situation with our Asia Pacific division that needs immediate attention." "Go ahead," I said, understanding the demands of professional responsibility. His call lasted several minutes, his expression growing increasingly serious. When he returned, apology was written across his features. "I need to step out to handle this," he said, genuine regret in his voice. "I promise I'll be back as quickly as possible." A knot formed in my stomach. Was this his exit strategy? A convenient business emergency to escape the charade? "I understand," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Business comes first. Natalie." He took my hand, his touch sending an unwelcome tingle up my arm. "I will be back. I'm not." He seemed uncharacteristically at a loss for words. "Please believe me," I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As I watched him walk away, I realized with alarming clarity that I'd begun to develop genuine feelings for a man who was essentially a stranger playing a role in an elaborate fiction of our creation. The wedding speeches began shortly after Sebastian's departure. Jessica thanked everyone for coming, her happiness radiating as she looked at Tyler beside her. The best man delivered a heartfelt toast about friendship and love, then raised his glass. "And if any special guests would like to share a few words," he announced, scanning the room, "we'd love to hear from you." Kimberly's gaze fixed on me, her expression challenging. She made a subtle gesture toward the microphone, clearly expecting me to embarrass myself, trying to explain Sebastian's absence. The microphone began making its way around the room, eventually finding its way to our table. I froze, panic rising in my throat. What could I possibly say that wouldn't expose our charade? "I'd be honored," came Sebastian's voice from behind me. He had returned so quietly I hadn't noticed. Relief flooded through me as he accepted the microphone with practiced ease. "Jessica and Tyler," he began, his voice confident but warm. "Though I'm meeting you both today, I can see the genuine connection you share. True connection is rare in this world." His eyes found mine for a brief moment. "When we find someone who sees us for who we truly are, who challenges us to be better while accepting our flaws, that's worth celebrating, worth fighting for." He raised his glass. "To Jessica and Tyler, and to authentic connections wherever we find them." The simple toast received appreciative applause. As Sebastian sat beside me, our eyes met with unexpected intensity, something unspoken passing between us. After the speeches concluded, Sebastian gestured toward the terrace doors. "Could we get some air?" The terrace overlooked Central Park, the city lights twinkling against the night sky. A gentle May breeze carried the scent of the garden below. We stood side by side at the stone balustrade, momentarily alone in the midst of a crowded celebration. "I should confess something," Sebastian said after a moment of comfortable silence. "I hadn't planned to stay for the entire reception." My heart sank. "I understand. You've already gone above and beyond for a complete stranger." "That's not what I meant," he clarified quickly. "I was at the hotel for a business meeting in the Vanderbilt suite. I was heading out when I overheard your sister's comment as you arrived. It bothered me, the casual cruelty of it. I studied his profile in the soft lighting. So, this was what a random act of kindness? Rescue the pathetic single woman? No, he said firmly. It was. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I recognized you from where? The Digital Marketing Innovation Conference in Chicago last October. You presented on emotional storytelling in tech campaigns. Your case study on humanizing artificial intelligence was brilliant. I stared at him in disbelief. You remember that? You wore a green blouse that matched your eyes, he said softly. You handled the Q&A session with such intelligence and grace, even when that guy from Microsoft tried to undermine your methodology. That was almost 8 months ago, I said, stunned that someone like him would remember someone like me in such detail. I meant to introduce myself afterward, but you were surrounded by people, and then my flight got moved up. His gaze was steady on mine. When I saw you tonight, it seemed like, I don't know, serendipity maybe. My mind struggled to process this new information. So when you stepped in, pretending to be my boyfriend, it wasn't entirely selfless, he admitted. I regretted not meeting you properly in Chicago. This seemed like a second chance. Before I could respond, the terrace door opened and Kimberly appeared. Her timing impeccable as always. There you are. Her voice was artificially bright. Mom's looking for you, Natalie. Something about family photos. Sebastian nodded politely. We'll be right in. Kimberly didn't move. You two seem awfully comfortable for only dating 3 months. Almost like you've known each other much longer. Or perhaps not at all. My stomach dropped. Kim, not now. I'm just saying it's convenient how perfect this all appears. Her gaze shifted between us. Almost too perfect. Sebastian straightened. Is there something you're trying to say? Only that my sister has never mentioned you before tonight. Not once. And suddenly, you appear like Prince Charming at the exact moment she needs to save face. Forgive me for being skeptical. Kim, I warned, feeling the situation spiraling. Sebastian's jaw tightened. I travel extensively for work. We've been keeping things private while figuring out what this is. Kimberly's smile was sharp. Then why did the concierge tell Mom he escorted you directly from your business meeting to the reception? Apparently, you asked where the Green Mitchell wedding was being held. Her eyes gleamed triumphantly. You two just met tonight, didn't you? Sebastian and I exchanged glances, caught in our deception. That's what I thought, Kimberly said. Wait until everyone hears how desperate Natalie was to avoid showing up alone. It wasn't like that, Sebastian protested. I made the decision to step in, not Natalie. So you're some kind of wedding-crashing Good Samaritan? Kimberly laughed. Hurt and embarrassment flooded through me. What had started as a rescue now felt like charity. You can stop defending me, I told Sebastian, stepping back. The charade's over. Natalie, this evening became more than just pretense for me, Sebastian said, his expression earnest. Right, I said bitterly. You felt sorry for the pathetic single woman getting mocked by her family. Wonderful knight in shining armor moment for you. That's not fair, he argued, frustration evident in his voice. You know that's not what happened between us tonight. What exactly happened, Sebastian? We played pretend. You acted a part convincingly. Congratulations. We connected, he insisted. The conversations we had, the things we shared, that wasn't acting, at least not for me. How am I supposed to believe anything that happens in the context of a lie? I demanded, my voice rising. I just got out of a relationship built on deception. I'm not eager to jump into another one. His expression softened. I'm sorry about what happened with your ex. Trust is fragile. I understand that, but I'm not him, Natalie. You're right. You're not, I agreed. He at least let me know who he really was before he betrayed me. Sebastian flinched as if I'd slapped him. Before he could respond, the terrace door opened again and Maxwell appeared looking harried. Seb, I'm sorry, but we have a situation that can't wait. The Singapore team is on the line and the deal is falling apart. Sebastian looked torn, his gaze moving between Maxwell and me. Natalie, please, can we talk after I handle this? I think we've said enough, I replied, wrapping my arms around myself. You should go. Your real life is calling. Pain flashed across his features, but Maxwell was already leading him away, talking rapidly about contract clauses and deadline extensions. I watched him disappear through the terrace doors, a bizarre mixture of relief and loss washing over me. I allowed myself 5 minutes alone on the terrace, gathering my composure before facing the reception again. When I turned to go inside, Kimberly was waiting by the doors with my mother. Natalie, what's going on? Diana demanded. Sebastian just left with another man. Is everything okay? Before Kimberly could launch into her exposé, I made a decision. Sebastian and I just met tonight, I admitted, my voice steady despite the humiliation burning in my chest. He overheard Kimberly mocking me for coming alone and stepped in to help. The business emergency is real, though. He's the CEO of Reed Innovations. Diana's face fell, disappointment replacing her earlier pride. Oh, Natalie, why would you deceive the family? I didn't plan this, Mom. It just happened. Things don't just happen, she sighed. This is exactly the reckless behavior that worries your father and me. First that marketing job instead of law school, then moving to Manhattan alone. I tuned out her familiar catalog of my perceived failures, watching as Kimberly whispered to a nearby cousin, no doubt spreading the news of my humiliation. Within minutes, I could feel the weight of sympathetic glances from around the room. I made my way to the edge of the reception, nursing a glass of wine and checking the time repeatedly. 9:45. Too early to leave without causing more talk, but every minute felt like an hour under the weight of my family's judgment, now intensified by the revelation of my deception. At 10:30, I made my decision. I approached Jessica, who was glowing with happiness on the dance floor. I'm not feeling well, I told her, forcing a smile. I think I'm going to head out. So early? She frowned. What about Sebastian? Is he coming back? Business emergency, I said, the lie coming easily now. He sends apologies. Her expression turned knowing. Ah, the curse of dating ambitious men. Well, thanks for coming, Nat. It meant a lot to have you here. I hugged her, genuinely happy for her joy, even amid my own turmoil. Congratulations, Jess. You and Tyler are perfect together. As I slipped out of the ballroom, I felt the weight of whispers and stares following me. Once again, I was Natalie Green, alone, pitied, and now with the added humiliation of having been caught in a desperate lie, the same way I'd arrived, only worse. Sunlight streamed through my apartment curtains the next morning, illuminating dust particles dancing in the air. I barely slept, replaying the wedding events in my mind like a particularly mortifying movie. The coffee machine gurgled as I leaned against my kitchen counter, trying to summon energy for the day ahead. My phone buzzed with a text notification, unknown number. Natalie, it's Sebastian. Got your number from the wedding planner. I'm sorry about last night, both for leaving abruptly and for how things ended between us. The business situation was genuine, but I should have handled it differently. I'd like to explain properly if you're willing. Sebastian, I stared at the message, uncertain how to respond. Part of me wanted to delete it and pretend the entire evening had never happened. Another part wondered what explanation he could possibly offer that would make any difference. I set the phone down without replying, needing time to process. 20 minutes later, my doorbell rang. Olivia stood in the hallway holding a pink bakery box and wearing an expectant expression. "I brought post-wedding debriefing pastries," she announced, brushing past me into the apartment. "Chocolate croissants and those almond things you like. Now spill everything. How bad was it?" I laughed, despite myself, the sound slightly hysterical even to my own ears. "Oh, where to begin? My family behaved exactly as expected. I was relegated to the singles table, and then, over fresh coffee and pastries, I recounted the entire evening. Sebastian's dramatic entrance, our improvised relationship, the genuine connection I'd felt developing, Kimberly's exposure of our charade, and Sebastian's abrupt departure. "Wait," Olivia interrupted, holding up a hand. "Sebastian Reed? The Sebastian Reed who donated $50 million to develop affordable housing last year? That Sebastian Reed? Apparently. And he pretended to be your boyfriend because he saw you getting mocked by your sister, then revealed he actually remembered you from a conference 8 months ago where he noticed the color of your blouse." I nodded, picking at a croissant. "Nat, that's not a red flag. That's a romance novel. Meet cute." "He lied," I pointed out. "To help you," she countered. "And then he was honest about why. He could have easily maintained the charade and tried to get your number afterward without revealing he already knew who you were." I hadn't considered that perspective. Even if his intentions were good, it doesn't change the fact that we built a connection on a foundation of deception. After Alex, I can't. "Alex deliberately betrayed you for months," Olivia said gently. "This is completely different. Sebastian created a fiction to protect you from public humiliation, then was honest about his motives at the first opportunity." Her words resonated, making me question my reaction on the terrace. Had I been too harsh, projecting Alex's betrayal onto an entirely different situation? I need to address the family situation first, I decided. Whatever might or might not happen with Sebastian, I can't keep letting Kimberly's behavior slide. Olivia squeezed my hand. "About time." I texted Kimberly suggesting lunch at a neutral cafe halfway between our apartments. To my surprise, she agreed readily. 2 hours later, we sat across from each other at a small table, an awkward silence stretching between us. "Last night was humiliating," I finally said, stirring my iced tea. "Not just the Sebastian situation, but the way you treated me from the moment I arrived. The comments about coming alone, my dress, my career choices. It's a pattern, Kim, and I'm done accepting it." Kimberly stared at her salad, her usual confidence notably absent. "I know," she said quietly. "You know," I repeated, surprised by the lack of defense. She looked up, and I was shocked to see tears in her eyes. "I'm jealous of you, Nat. Have been for years." Jealous of me? The concept seemed so absurd, I almost laughed. "You're the golden child, the beautiful one, the successful one with the perfect husband and perfect life. My marriage is falling apart," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Bradley's been having an affair with his assistant for over a year. I found out 6 months ago." I sat back, stunned. "Kim? I had no idea. No one does. We're pretending everything's fine while working with a marriage counselor." She twisted her wedding ring. "And your career. You built something from nothing. You're respected for your mind, your talent. I married the son of Dad's golf buddy and play tennis at the country club. I have no identity outside of being Bradley's wife." "But Mom and Dad always favored you," I argued. struggling to reconcile this new perspective with decades of lived experience. They expected different things from us, she corrected. They pushed me toward marriage and society, and you toward academics. Neither of us got to choose. We talked for nearly 2 hours, peeling back layers of misunderstanding and competition that had defined our relationship since childhood. For the first time, I saw my sister as a complex human being rather than the perfect nemesis I'd constructed in my mind. I'm sorry about Sebastian, she said eventually. I shouldn't have exposed you like that. It was cruel. It was, I agreed, but may be necessary. We can't build relationships on lies, romantic or familial. Her smile was tentative, but genuine. Does this mean you might give him a chance? He seemed to really like you, Nat. The way he looked at you wasn't fake. I need to finish cleaning house first, I said. Though Sebastian's text message remained in the back of my mind. My next stop was my parents' home in Westchester. The familiar colonial looked exactly as it had throughout my childhood. Immaculate landscaping, perfectly positioned rocking chairs on the porch, American flag flying by the door. Diana answered my knock, surprise registering on her face. Natalie, we weren't expecting you. Is everything okay? We need to talk, Mom. All of us. The conversation was difficult. Years of unspoken resentments and expectations finally articulated. I explained how their differential treatment had affected both Kimberly and me, how their constant comparisons had driven a wedge between sisters who might otherwise have supported each other. We wanted what was best for both of you, my mother defended, though her certainty wavered. You wanted what you thought was best without ever asking what we wanted for ourselves. To my surprise, my father supported me. She has a point, Diana. We pushed Kimberly toward Bradley because we thought he represented security. Look how that's turning out. And we discouraged Natalie's marketing ambitions because we didn't understand them. But she's thriving. My mother's eyes filled with tears. I never meant to make you feel less valued, Natalie. I just worried about you being alone. Being alone isn't the worst thing, Mom. Being in the wrong relationship is far worse. I need you to respect my choices, even when they don't align with your vision. By the time I left, something had shifted. No magical resolution or dramatic apologies, but a step toward mutual understanding. A beginning. Driving back to Manhattan, my phone rang through the car's Bluetooth. Jessica's name appeared on the display. Nat, I wanted to thank you again for coming yesterday. It meant so much having you there. It was beautiful, Jess. You and Tyler are perfect together. Speaking of perfect together, her voice took on a teasing quality. Sebastian Reed called us this morning asking for your contact information. Tyler nearly fell out of his chair when he realized who was calling. My heart skipped. He texted me earlier. And what did you say? Nothing yet. It's complicated, Jess. Life is complicated, she laughed. But connections like the one I saw between you two last night, those are rare. Fake relationship or not. As I pulled into my apartment building's parking garage, I spotted a familiar figure waiting by the entrance. Sebastian stood with his hands in his pockets, wearing jeans and a simple button-down rather than last night's formal suit. His hair was slightly tousled, as if he'd been running his hands through it nervously. He straightened when he saw me approach. Natalie, thank you for not calling security when you saw me waiting here. How did you know where I live? I asked, though without the accusation that might have colored the question last night. Jessica, he admitted, I hope that's okay. I wanted to apologize in person. We stood awkwardly for a moment before I gestured toward the building. Would you like to come up? We can talk more comfortably. In my apartment, I offered him water, which he accepted gratefully. We sat on opposite ends of my couch, the space between us filled with unspoken words. "I'm sorry about last night," he began, "both for leaving abruptly and for how we left things. The business emergency was genuine. A deal in Singapore that represents 3 years of work was falling apart, but I should have handled it differently. I overreacted," I admitted. "What happened with my ex made me hypersensitive to anything that feels like deception." "Understandable," he set his glass down carefully on a coaster. "The truth is, Natalie, I've thought about you periodically since that conference in Chicago. Your presentation was brilliant, but it was more than that. There was an authenticity to you that's rare. When I saw you at the wedding, looking so vulnerable yet dignified despite your family's treatment, I acted on impulse. Why didn't you just introduce yourself normally? 'Hey, I saw your presentation last year. I'd love to chat.'" He smiled ruefully. In retrospect, that would have been a sensible approach. But when I heard your sister's comment and saw your face, I just reacted. I wanted to turn the tables for you. "It was quite the dramatic entrance," I acknowledged, a small smile tugging at my lips. "I meant what I said on the terrace, the connection we formed last night, the conversations, the dances, the shared observations. That wasn't pretend for me." His gaze held mine, sincere and unwavering. "I'd like to start over properly this time. No audience, no pretense." I studied him. This man who had turned my humiliation into one of the most memorable evenings of my life, who had seen me at a professional conference and remembered the color of my blouse 8 months later, who was now sitting on my IKEA couch, looking at me like I was something precious rather than something broken. "I'm scared," I admitted. "After Alex, I built walls. It's safer that way." "Safer, maybe, but also lonelier." His voice was gentle. "I'm not asking for anything more than a chance, Natalie. One real date. If there's nothing there without the drama of last night, we'll know." The practical part of me listed all the reasons to decline. The unconventional beginning, my recent heartbreak, the complications of his high-profile life. But another part, a part that had been silenced for too long, whispered of possibilities. "One dinner," I agreed finally. "A real first date. No pretending we already know each other." His smile was worth the risk. "I'd like that very much." He reached for my hand, his touch warm and steady. When our fingers intertwined, it felt both new and familiar, like the beginning of something genuine, something true. 6 months later, I stood on my parents' front porch, watching Sebastian park his car in the driveway. Thanksgiving at the Green family home, a tradition I'd often dreaded, felt different this year. Sebastian emerged from the car carrying a bottle of wine and the pumpkin pie we'd baked together that morning, his smile warming me despite the November chill. "Ready for this?" he asked, joining me on the porch. "As I'll ever be," I replied, leaning into him briefly before ringing the doorbell. The past 6 months had transformed my life in ways I never anticipated. That night at Jessica's wedding, our first real date had been at a small Italian restaurant in the village, where we talked until the owner politely informed us they were closing. Unlike the performance at the wedding, this was authentic, complete with awkward pauses, genuine discoveries, and the nervous energy of true beginning. Our second date was at an indie film festival featuring Emilia Santiago's latest work. We disagreed about the third act, leading to a spirited debate over dessert that left us both invigorated rather than annoyed. By the third date, I knew something special was developing. We had our first real argument 6 weeks in when work commitments forced him to cancel plans at the last minute. Instead of letting it fester as I might have in the past, I expressed my disappointment directly. He listened, acknowledged my feelings, and we found a compromise that respected both our needs. That resolution taught me more about healthy relationships than years of dating ever had. Olivia approved of him immediately, not because of his wealth or status, but because of how attentively he listened when she spoke about her passion for environmental law. He sees people, she told me afterward, really sees them. I met his business partner Maxwell properly, gaining insight into the world Sebastian navigated daily, the high-stakes decisions, the responsibility for thousands of employees' livelihoods, the pressure of constant innovation. Instead of finding his work intimidating, I found myself offering marketing perspectives that he genuinely valued. When Reed Innovations launched a new consumer privacy platform, Sebastian incorporated several of my suggestions into the campaign strategy. 2 months ago, I'd formally introduced him to my family at a casual dinner. The difference in their reception compared to Jessica's wedding was subtle but significant. This time, their interest felt genuine rather than opportunistic. Sebastian fielded their questions with the same patience and charm he'd shown at the wedding. But now there was no performance, no need to construct a fictional backstory. The door opened, revealing Kimberly without Bradley. After months of counseling, they had decided to separate, a decision that seemed to have lifted a weight from my sister's shoulders. She was enrolled in interior design courses at Parsons, pursuing a passion she'd abandoned after college. Happy Thanksgiving, she hugged me warmly, then turned to Sebastian with genuine warmth. Mom's been talking about your pie since you called yesterday. No pressure. Inside, the house buzzed with familiar holiday energy. My mother hugged Sebastian as if he were already family, while my father clapped him on the shoulder with uncharacteristic enthusiasm. Natalie was just telling us about your new privacy initiative, Diana said, leading us toward the living room. It sounds fascinating. It was actually Natalie's insight about user trust being our most valuable asset that shaped the entire campaign, Sebastian replied, his pride in my contribution evident. Throughout dinner, I observed the subtle shifts in family dynamics. Kimberly and I shared inside jokes rather than veiled competition. My mother asked thoughtful questions about my recent projects at Tech Vision. My father expressed genuine interest in both our careers without the comparative evaluation that had once been his trademark. When Sebastian excused himself to take a brief call about a system update, my mother leaned toward me. "He's wonderful, Natalie. You seem very happy together." "We are," I confirmed, the simple truth of it still sometimes surprising me. "I'm sorry we made you feel like you needed someone to be complete," she said quietly. "You were always enough on your own. I see that now." Later, as we drove back to the city, Sebastian reached for my hand across the console. "Your family's really coming around." "They're trying," I agreed. "It's a process." "Speaking of family gatherings," he said casually, "my parents are coming to New York for Christmas. They're dying to meet you." "Meeting the parents?" I teased. "That's a big step. One of many I hope we'll take together." His voice grew more serious. "I was thinking we might attend another wedding soon." My heart skipped. "Oh, Maxwell's getting married in June," he clarified with a mischievous smile, though something in his eyes suggested a deeper meaning. Though who knows what other ceremonies might be on our horizon. I squeezed his hand, contentment washing over me. 6 months ago, I'd walked into a wedding alone, dreading the judgment and pity of my family. That evening of humiliation had become the catalyst for transformation. In my relationship with my sister, my parents, and most surprisingly, with myself. Standing alone had ultimately given me the strength to find true partnership, not because I needed completion, but because I finally understood my own worth. The unexpected meeting that night had changed everything, not because Sebastian had rescued me, but because the experience had empowered me to rescue myself. As the city skyline came into view, glittering against the night sky, I realized I was genuinely thankful for that moment when my family had laughed at me for arriving alone. Without their judgment, I might never have found the courage to demand better from them, from my relationships, and from myself. Sometimes the most painful moments lead to the most profound transformation. Sometimes you have to stand alone to discover you were complete all along. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this story. Have you ever had a family member underestimate you, only to prove them wrong later? Or have you experienced an unexpected meeting that changed your life? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed Natalie's journey, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more stories like this, and share with someone who might need a reminder of their own worth. Thank you for joining me today. And remember, sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come from the most uncomfortable moments.